Discuss about learning the panacea for Shlema. Everyone that means we're going to start 120 Kuf Chaf Amud Aleph, the bottom line. Correct? That's what we left off, right? Okay, it's a Mishnah. Yashnu Miktasan. Part of the group that's eating the Korban Pesach fell asleep. This is very typical Friday night. Or a long Seder. So they fell asleep. So what's the problem? The problem with falling asleep is that it interrupts the meal. And then when you eat again, it's like you're eating the meal in a new location. So here we're saying that because only some of them fell asleep, you could still eat. However, kulan, if everyone fell asleep, then lo yechelu. They can't continue. They can't continue eating because it's considered that they're in a new location. Rashbam says maybe you think it has to do with a different group. He says no, it's not a different group. That's not the issue. The issue is the Korban Pesach could be divided into groups. That's not a problem. You could have one Korban Pesach being eaten by a group on this wing of the house, and you can have it, and the other part of the Korban Pesach is eaten in the group in the other wing of the house. That's not a problem. So here, the problem would be two groups. Then, okay, so the first group ate it before they fell asleep. The second group ate it. The second group ate it after. That would be no problem. The problem is that one person, an individual, can't go and eat a Korban Pesach in Group A and then eat it in Group B. And here, what he's doing is he's falling asleep. Group A is finished. Now he's in the middle of Group B. That he can't do. So there's two Shnei Mekaymis. The Chiddush, the Rashbam tells us, is that the same thing would apply to the matzah in Bisman Hazeh. Yeah. Someone falls asleep in the middle of eating the matzah. He can't eat more. I don't know if this is the halacha. I don't know. I don't remember this. This is too common that people fall asleep in the middle of the Seder. This year it's a little easier. Because it's Shabbos. It's been taken out. Ki Reb Yesi Yomer nisnam nemu, right? Nisnam nemu. Then yochel. If they dozed off, they can still eat. But near the moon, what if they went into a slumber, a deeper sleep? Then lo yochel. Then they can't eat. Now, what's Rabbi Yossi saying? Rashbam learns. He says Areshakai. He's being more strict. The Tanakama said if an individual falls asleep, it's still acceptable. Comes on Rabbi Yossi, it says no, it's not acceptable if he falls into a deep sleep. His meal is finished. He's finished the meal. He can't eat again. If he eats again, he's eating in a new group. It doesn't have to do with anyone else. We're going to see in a moment. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sorry. They all slept. According to the Tanakama, that would make the difference. According to Rabbi Yossi, it doesn't matter to us if everyone fell asleep. Each individual. Yeah? Okay. We'll see in the Gemara a little bit more, some more details. There is another opinion how to learn this Gemara, and the other opinion would be more lenient. What you would do is you would say like this. The Tanakama said it depends if an individual or everyone. Comes on Rabbi Yossi and says it depends on the level of sleep. So I can learn either the way the Rashbam is learning is that if the individual falls into a deep sleep, then he's finished for the meal, is all done. However, the other opinions learn that if everyone fell asleep, a deep sleep, yes, you can learn it the other way. You can learn it that it's going on everyone, on the Seifa, and then Rabbi is being lenient. Yeah. Not every time everyone falls asleep is it a issue. It could be that they didn't fall into a deep sleep, and it's still going to be acceptable. That would be another way of reading it. Rashbam doesn't read it like that. Okay. HaPesach Achar Chatzos, the Korban Pesach after midnight, Metameh Siyadayim, makes the hands impure. It means you have to, I guess, wash your hands. Means it makes a person tameh. Pigel v'hanaiser metameh siyadayim. Pigel, which is an invalidated sacrifice because of the Kohen had thoughts of offering parts of it after the allotted time. Hanaiser means if the actual meat of the sacrifice was actually left over. So those foods make the hands tameh. Rabbinically makes it tameh. Okay. Rabbi Yossi, the Gemara now discusses. Rabbi Yossi, that if a person falls into just a small sleep, dozes off, so then he can still eat when he wakes up. But if he falls into a deep sleep, he can't eat. Your question, the Gemara asked. What is the scenario? How do we determine if it's a deep sleep or not a deep sleep? So Amar Ravashi Nimbalei Nim Tir Tir. He's asleep but not asleep. He's awake but not awake. Kagain the Kari Levani V'layad Ladir Svara. When they call him, he responds, but he can't really answer anything. This is when the kids like to ask permission if they can they can take the car or go to the right when they're falling asleep. Can I have the car? Can I have the car? Yeah. So what? I never said that. What do you mean? You told me clearly. I have it recorded. So, but if you tell him, it's too if you tell him the details, he'll remember. Now, either that means afterwards he remembers, or it means right now. So it would be like this. Where did you put the car keys? I don't know. Did you put them in the front? So yeah, I put them in. So if you tell him the details, he can respond yes or no. But if you don't tell him the details, he can't respond. So he's half asleep. Okay, Abaya have Yosef Kamei de Rabba. Abaya was raised by Rabba, and he's sitting in front of Rabba. Abaya was an orphan. So he's sitting in front of Rabba. Chazad Kamanamnim, he sees that Rabba is dozing off. It doesn't say clearly that this is on Pesach, but it looks like it's on Pesach. Amalei, Menum Kanayamar is the master falling asleep. Amalei Menumi Kamanamnim, Utanan, Nisnamnu Yechlo Nidmalay Layechlo. As I'm just dozing off. And it says in the Mishnah that dozing off is acceptable. You see, if he can respond the Mishnah, then he's not dozing off. Abaya would have had to tell him, are you just dozing off? And the Mishnah said, and he could say yes or no. Yeah, it doesn't say clearly that this is. It could be that it's not on Pesach. I mean, the Mishnah was referring to Pesach, and he's just quoting him a Mishnah that's relevant to falling asleep. Okay. It would be surprising if it would be on Pesach. You have all the stories that they stayed up all night and the Seder. It was a regular Wednesday. Okay. The Pesach after midnight makes the hands impure. Alma the Gemara says, what's going on over here? How long do you have to eat the Korban Pesach? You're supposed to have the whole night. Apparently, if it makes the hands impure for midnight, obviously the allotted time is up. Can't eat it anymore. I mean, the pasuk says, don't leave it over until the morning. So I know rabbinically, I'm always supposed to stop by midnight. That's the first mission in brachas. But that wouldn't make your hands tummy. So here we're saying your hands become tamei means that that's the end time. It's got to be the end time from eating the carbon pesach is midnight. Montana, who's the one that holds this? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Yosef says it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds that the Seder has to end at midnight. Yeah, this is our discussion every year. We have to finish the Seder before midnight. We get an extra hour. We change the clocks already, right? So we start an hour later. So, okay. Oh, really? You just read it like it's like Shabbos Haggadah? Like you read this the Haggadah? The Tanya was taught in the Brisa, "Va'achlu asabasar b'layla hazeh." Should eat the meat on this night. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer nemer kan b'layla hazeh. It says in the verse on this night, and it also says in another pasuk, I'll pass through the land of Egypt on this night. The ad chatzais is a little odd. But just like over there, it was at midnight, until midnight is what it wants to say. So to over here, it's also until midnight. So what are we seeing? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says that the carbon pesach is eaten until the time of the death of the firstborn, which was at midnight. Amalei Rabbi Akiva says to him, Alei nemar chipazin. It says in haste, ad shas chipazin, until they were chased out. They were chased out of Egypt in the morning. Imkein matam adlaimar balayla. So why does it say at night? Now at night, the Gemara assuming means the first part of the night. It says yachali einachal kakachim bayayim. Doesn't mean just the first part of the night. It means that you can't start eating the carbon pesach from the time of the shechita. The carbon pesach is shechted on the 14th in the middle of the day, in the afternoon. You can't eat the carbon pesach until that night, until the beginning of the 15th that night. So it's coming to tell me, I could have thought that I eat it from the time of the shechita and onward. The pasuk says by night. It's only eaten by night, not by day. So what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is doing with the word balayla, it's not telling me that I have the whole night to eat it. It's coming to tell me that I don't have the day, the original at the time of the shechita. I don't have that day. Rabbi Akiva, what does Rabbi Akiva do with the word hazeh? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said that hazeh made a gzir shava, a analogy between these two words that tell me that just like the death of the firstborn was at midnight, so to the carbon pesach is midnight until midnight. Rabbi Akiva says no. Really, you have the whole night to eat. But hazeh is telling me that I only have one night to eat. I don't have 2 nights to eat the carbon pesach. Well, it says whatever's left over till the morning. Gemara's going to say that maybe means the second morning. I could have thought Hayalu Pesach Kachim Kalam, just like that, since a carbon Pesach is of lesser sanctity. There's two levels of sanctities amongst karbanos. It's Kachi Kachim and Kachi Kalam. Kachi Kachim is the holier sacrifice. Those only have 1 day and 1 night. The lesser holy sacrifices have 2 days and 1 night, the night in the middle. So I could have thought that a carbon pesach is of the lesser holiness. It means you have the whole Jerusalem to eat it in, not just the temple. So shlamim kachim kalim. A peace offering is also kachim kalim. Mashlam nechel shneim v'layla echad. Just like a peace offering has 2 days and 1 night. Av pesach ukim leilis b'makim yom v'nechel shnei leilis v'yayim echad. Maybe I should say the carbon pesach, I have 2 nights in the day in the middle. The Kasar Rahman Hazeh comes to tell me, no, you only have 1 night. Okay. Now, the truth is, Rabbi Akiva also holds that you have to stop at midnight. But his stopping at midnight is rabbinic. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah stopping at midnight is because that's the end time. Rabbi Akiva's end time is the morning. But we don't want it to go until the morning. You might overstep. You might eat past the allotted time. So we rather you spoil the carbon pesach by not finishing it and having leftover meat than for you to end up eating after the allotted time. It's much worse if you eat after the allotted time than to have leftover meat. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, this concept that you only have one night to eat the Korban Pesach and not 2 nights in the day in the middle, that I know from when it says what's left over until the morning is burnt, or don't leave over until the morning. Rabbi Kiva says, how do you know it means till the first morning? Maybe it means till the second morning. Don't leave over. Rabbi Elazar says, whenever it says the morning, it doesn't mean the second morning. It means the first morning, right? Like it would say, I need you to clean your room before you go to sleep. Wakes up in the morning, the room's not clean. Before I go to sleep tomorrow night. Okay. Amar Rava says, Achal matzah b'zman hazeh achar chatzos, l'Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah liyotzi yedei chavasei. Yeah. Rava says if you eat matzah after midnight, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, you don't fulfill the obligation because the matzah is in place of the Korban Pesach. The Afikaiman matzah. So you have to eat it before chatzos. So we're strict about this on the first night of Pesach. The second night, we're not. Where says Pshita? This is obvious. Given this, Pesach, of course. I need Rava to tell this to me. Yeah, I need Rava because I could have thought differently. You see, what happened was the pasuk says that you eat the Korban Pesach together with matzah and mar. So it's compared to matzah mar. Whenever I eat the Korban Pesach, that's when I eat the matzah. But then the pasuk tells me that you should eat the matzah for 7 days. You should eat the matzah for 6 days. And then it says, the 6 days, remember yesterday we had, well, if the 7th day is only voluntary, that means the 6 days are only voluntary. That means that the matzah is not necessarily associated with the Korban Pesach. It has there's this other rule of matzah that you eat it the whole Pesach, voluntary or whatever. So maybe I don't have to eat it at all. It's just voluntary. So the pasuk says no. The first night you have to eat it, but erev teichel matzah. So what happened here was I removed the matzah from being associated from the Korban Pesach because I said I eat it for 6 days or I eat it for 7 days. And then I say, if that's the case, then it's only voluntary. I don't have to eat it at all. I can eat meat, right? The whole Pesach or potatoes or whatever. I don't have to eat matzah. Then it says no, but erev teichel matzah. There's one time you do have to eat matzahs. That's the first night. So because it was originally attached to the Korban Pesach, matzah, al matzah samar mechlu, then it's removed from the Korban Pesach. And then it's re-established on the first night. Maybe it's not re-established in association with the Korban Pesach. Maybe it's just re-established independently, that it's the first night. So, Kamash Malan Rava, that when it's re-established together with the Korban Pesach, that the laws of the Korban Pesach, which means the deadline, the end time for eating the Korban Pesach is the same as the matzah. Yeah, there's a famous Avnei Nezer says that if you want to extend your Seder longer, he says that what you can do is you can eat the matzah before chatzos. You can eat the afikomen before chatzos, and you have in mind like this. You say, if the Allah is like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, then this is my afikomen. Now the problem is that then you're not allowed to eat anymore after the afikomen. So he claims that you're only not allowed to eat after the afikomen until chatzos, because that's the end time of the korban. After chatzos, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, allowed to eat. So, and if it's not, the Allah is not like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, then I'm going to eat later. So what you do is eat it right before chatzos. Then you continue the seder and you eat the chicken and everything. How you allowed to eat after the afikomen? Yeah, in the morning I'm allowed to eat, right? According to everyone, I'm allowed to eat in the morning. Why? Because the Seder is over. So according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azai, the Seder is over at Chatzais. And that's the end time in Yom Atid. He's yeah, he had a family. Well, his father-in-law was the Kutzka, I think. Yeah, his father. His son was a Shem Yishmael, or that was anyway. Okay. Hapigol v'aneiser metamis yadayim chulu. We say that the meat that's invalid because of the Kohen's thoughts, or noiser, the meat that becomes invalid because of it was left over there a lot of time, so that makes the hands impure. Rav Huna v'Rav Chisda. There's a machlokes between Rav Huna and Rav Chisda. Chadam mishum chashadei kuna, v'chadam mishum atzali kuna. One says that it has to do with Kayanim are suspected to do something wrong, and so therefore we instituted this. And the other one says that it's not that they're suspected to do something wrong, we suspect that maybe they're lazy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have an explanation for that. Usually it says Kayanim are his reason. Okay. One says that when does this law apply? One says it applies to a kazayas. The other one says it applies to a kabeya. On top of 121. So the Gemara explains that really it's not such a major machlokes, because chad tani apigul v'chad tani anaiser. One was referring to pigul and one was referring to naisa. Man tani apigul, the one was referring to pigul, which is the invalid because the kayanim had the wrong thoughts. That's mishum chashadikuna. Why did we institute that meat is going to make the hands tummy? Because we didn't want some kayan that's either upset with someone or whatever is going to make the scheme that he's going to invalidate the person's karban, and then maybe not tell him, or maybe tell him, or whatever it is. But in order to stop this from happening, we say that it becomes impure. When it comes to purity, the person is going to need to say, and he's also going to be careful. The laws of purity, everyone was very careful of. So, in order to make sure he doesn't do this, whatever it is, either on purpose or do it by mistake and not tell him, we make sure that he has to that this doesn't happen by making it tummy. Mandatani anaisar, the one that says it's shrink to nicer, which means that if it's just left over, mishumat atzalikuna. That has to do with with laziness. We don't want them to be lazy, so we say that if you leave over any meat, it becomes tummy. It makes the hands tummy. Dr. Stein, what does that have to do with anything?
One side said that the Kohanim were not trustworthy, right?
Yes.
So Chaucer said in Canterbury Tales, if gold rusts, he was referring to the clergy. What could you expect from regular man? So it's just a alternative or confirmatory quote.
Okay.
In my stretch mind.
Okay. Okay. Maybe the pshat is that how are the Kayanim becoming lazy all of a sudden? We never say that. It's only lazy when it comes to eating, not when it comes to doing work. Here we're saying that they're not going to rush to eat. They're busy doing other things. They're running around doing this. When it comes to eating the meat, they may leave it over. So for that, maybe we say they're lazy. Maybe because they're really not lazy. They never sit down to eat. Maybe that's there's reason. Reason means they're always active. Maybe that's Avram Nassim. I don't know if that helps. Okay. Here it is a machlekes. One says that it has to do with the size of a kazayas, an olive size. The other one says it's the size of an egg. Mandam kazayas. The one that says that it's an olive kiisure. That's because we're dealing with the size that would be the prohibited, where the isser comes. Mandam kabev kitamasa. The one that says that it has to do with an egg size of meat that would make the ham tummy. That has to do with the size that tumah normally takes place, or is transmitted if the food is the size of an egg. Okay. Now, the question is, are we looking at the reason why we don't want this to happen, or are we looking at the result? The reason why would be a kazayas. The result would be a kabeya. And now we have a Mishnah. Berech berches ha-pesach pater shel zevach. Berech shel zevach le pater shel pesach. Rashi says that you make a bracha when you eat the korban pesach. What bracha do you say? He says, Al achilas pesachim. And on the korban chagiga, you say Al achilas shlamim. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu Al achilas pesachim. Or Al achilas pesach, maybe. Al achilas pesachim. And Al achilas shlamim. The Rashbam says no. You say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvos lechol ha-pesach. Or lechol ha-zevach. Okay, whatever the case is, that's not the main point of it here. The main point is that if a person makes a bracha on the korban, on eating the korban pesach, he then doesn't need to make a bracha on the korban chagiga. Question: which came first? The chagiga should be first. Chagiga was a second sacrifice that was brought that the person could fill up on, and then as a dessert he would eat the korban pesach. So the korban pesach was always eaten after the person was already full, not stuffed, but it was eaten like a dessert. So like we eat the yafi kaiman at the end. Oh, thank you. So the commentaries say that even though we've always heard that the korban pesach is eaten at the end, it's not necessarily so. A kazayas is eaten at the end, but you could also start off with eating the korban pesach, and you have to save the kazayas for the end. Yeah, it took 121 pages to tell me that. So they have to read till the end, right? Can't stop in the middle. So that's what's happening here. He's eating a little bit of the korban pesach at the beginning. He doesn't need to say a bracha anymore on the korban chagiga that he's going to eat. Why? Because the main thing, well, this is the way Yerushalmi puts it, is that the main thing is the korban pesach. And just like when you have a main part of a meal, just like usually bread, or let's say cereal and milk or something. So the main thing is the cereal, or the main thing is the bread. You only make the bracha on the bread. You don't have to make the bracha on the dips that go along with the bread. You don't have to make the bracha on the milk, unless the children, the parents want them to eat the milk. But otherwise, for a regular person, he wants the cereal, so he doesn't make the bracha on the second day. So too, the korban pesach is the main thing, and that was just secondary. So you're exempt. If you make the bracha on the korban pesach, you don't have to make the bracha anymore. However, if you made the bracha on the chagiga, then you have to make the bracha still on the korban pesach. The Rabbi Yishmael. That's the words of Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Kiva says, Leizu Peter Zuv, Leizu Peter Zuv. Rabbi Kiva says, you have to say two brachas. But this one doesn't exempt that one. Yeah. I'm sorry? Right. So it's a bracha on eating, and the mitzvah is to eat. Right. Separate mitzvah. Uh-huh. Naftali, you want to ask them?
Yeah, question. Was the Chagiga a cow?
If it's a shlamim, it could have been a sheep or a goat or a cow.
Could have been any animal.
Could, yeah.
And there's no requirement that it be roasted.
That was a machlokes before, if the carbon chagiga needed to be roasted as well. It was a discussion. I think we said that it needs to be roasted. Everything on this night is roasted. Remember, we had like a Mishnah.
Right. So it could have been sitting down to eat 2 pieces of sheep, both of which were roasted.
Right.
So it makes really a lot of sense if one bracha covers it.
Right. But what about the other way? One bracha on the chagiga doesn't cover the.
Right.
You see, what's difficult in understanding this Mishnah is when I say zevach, al achilas zevach, or lechal zevach. Zevach means a sacrifice. That should be the inclusive bracha that should cover the other types of sacrifices that are there as well. Pesach is the more specific.
Yeah.
It's like saying ha'etz, and the eitz doesn't cover the adama. So it's counterintuitive here.
Right.
We're saying that no, the carbon Pesach, the commentaries say that the chagiga is called the Pesach as well in certain places, because when it says you eat the carbon Pesach, it says that it brings like 2 words, and one word is referring to the Pesach, one's referring to the chagiga. So because of that, it's included in the carbon Pesach as well. So therefore, it gets covered by the word Pesach, the chagiga, whatever. So yeah, I was looking for, maybe there's a different girsa in this Mishnah that would tell me exactly the opposite. That if may say a bracha on the zevach, it should cover the Pesach because zevach is a more inclusive term. That's what I would have thought, but I didn't find that. Okay, the only girsa that I found that's different is that the order of the phrases of the Mishnah are rearranged in some versions. Okay, now it says kashatim to laimar. You're able to say l'dibra Rabbi Yishmael zrika b'chlal shvicha, v'lei shvicha b'chlal zrika. L'dibra Rabbi Akiva v'lei shvicha b'chlal zrika, v'lei zrika b'chlal shvicha. There's 2 ways of putting the blood onto the altar. One is to sprinkle the blood, and the other one is to pour it. Now, the carbon Pesach, the blood is poured. Other karbanos, the blood is sprinkled. So what we're saying here is like this, that according to Rabbi Yishmael, if I pour the blood by the other sacrifices where it's supposed to be sprinkled, it's still acceptable. So that's why what he's saying is that if I say the bracha on the carbon Pesach, that covers other sacrifice, because that type of putting the blood would have covered the other sacrifices as well. Yeah, what is this? We were trying to discuss that it has to do with Iker and Tafel with Yerushalmi. It doesn't fit perfectly with this Gemara. This Gemara is telling me that it has some other halachic significance here. It has to do with the way the blood is placed on the altar. Yeah, that it could be that the easiest way, the most inclusive way, the default of putting the blood on the altar is to pour it, and then you have details after that. So, but the carbon Pesach, which is the default way, which is the pouring it, so that would cover the zevach. And according to Rabbi Akiva, leishvicha b'chlal zrika v'leizrika b'chlal shvicha, that it doesn't work like that. That yes, the carbon Pesach is shvicha. However, when it says zrika, it needs to be sprinkled. It can't be poured onto the altar. Okay, the next piece of Gemara I want to leave for the Siyum. All right, has to do with the bracha Shechianu. Okay. Tomorrow, don't forget the Masechta Shkalim. Yeah, it's not in this. If you use a Gemara like this, it's not in this. You have to use a. You have to find which volume it's printed in. I'll come to show you. Have them over here.